Alright, so I want you to imagine for a second the most emo MC you can possibly think of, and then add on top of that the most generic shonen plot you can possibly think of, and then make that emo MC just an exorcist, and you basically get the Nito Exorcists from all of that. And I know from that description it probably sounds like I don't like the manga, but I actually do quite like it. It came out late last year sometime, but it was just recently added on the Manga Plus app, which is where I read all of my most recent weekly shonen mangas. And it was actually very surprisingly okay. It's not incredible by any means. Again, like I said, it has a very generic plot, so that already holds it back tremendously. But I guess the point with it is that it did more that I liked or that I was okay with than things that I just hate, generally from shonen tropes. And as I don't see too many people talking about this online, I figured I may as well make a video on it and talk about some of the things I liked about it, some of the things I didn't like so much, and some of the things I'm just kind of met on. And there's a lot in that category. There's not too much I definitively like or dislike about this manga. It's just a lot of it is sort of in the middle of the road, sort of 5 or 6 out of 10. And so yeah, be prepared for a very lukewarm video on a very lukewarm manga. But I don't know, I kind of wanted to talk about it for some reason. So before we really get into it though, let me give you a preview of what the story is about. So we follow the MC Rokuroku Gosuji, who is an exorcist that's on a mission to hunt down the evil spirit that killed his caretaker Iruka. He's been training as an exorcist for a while under his father for the Gosuji clan, and his training was quite ruthless, which is why he's developed beyond the normal capabilities of other exorcists. And that's basically the setup of where we're starting from chapter 1. And that's basically where I'm going to leave the story discussion off at. In my last video, I said I wouldn't spoil a lot, and I spoiled a fuck ton because I just started to ramble. And also, this manga only has 22 chapters out, so I would just literally be telling you the entire story. But yeah, now let's switch over, I guess, to the pros of this manga. I guess I'll start with the first thing that I can say I definitely liked about this manga was the sort of rigid art style. It's very brutal and it's very in your face. And I feel like it's best done when characters are talking to each other, just regular dialogue and exposition is happening, rather than the fight scenes. That'll be in the things I didn't really like about it. But yeah, for the most part, there's 2 switches to this manga's art style. It's very in your face, very brutal. The colors or the ink, it pops out a lot. And the other side is it can get kind of goofy. They have 2 sides. It's, they're being kind of goofy or they're being deadly serious. And some people might find that jarring because it's a very sort of depressing it's supposed to give you a depressing feel, at least the manga is, in terms of this story of revenge. But to me, it's just, I don't know, it sits somewhere in the middle without feeling jarring for some reason. I think they balance it out well with the way the art is portrayed. So I guess that's another thing, is that they utilize the art really well. But I feel like this manga took a lot of inspiration from mangas like Chainsaw Man and a more recent one called Mad, where it uses that sort of transitioning in the art style where it shows the same frames. You know what I'm talking about. I'll put up a couple of examples, but they use the same frames over and over again in the same, I guess, sort of layer. And to me, it's a little unnecessary. It doesn't add to the storytelling ability. So I don't know. Obviously, to me, it took inspiration from Chainsaw Man and Mad, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. I just think it was sort of out of place. And honestly, that's about it from the things that I really like about this manga. The art style is definitely hard carrying this manga so far, for me at least. It's not that I hate everything else. It's just that everything else, or most of everything else, is kind of meh. But next I'll switch to the things that I didn't like. And again, it was going back to the confusing fight scenes. This is mainly down to how the art is portrayed in the fight scenes. There's a lot of ink splatter everywhere. Let me put up a couple of shots so you can know what I'm talking about. But you can't see anything. Tell me with a straight face you can actually see what's happening here, because I can't see anything happening at all. And for most of the fights, I'm just Rokuroku just comes in and does his little, oh my god, I'm so badass and I'm about to take you out in one hit. Most of the time, the fights don't really mean much. Also, that's another negative, is that there's not really any stakes so far in the fights. Again, it's only 22 chapters deep, but none of the fights have had any actual challenge. So it just feels like putting stopgaps in front of the MC just for the sake of it. But yeah, apart from that, that's the only definite negative that I have with this manga. Again, there's only one actual positive, I guess you can say, and one actual negative. everything else is just going to be meh to me. So the first thing I'll start with this meh, or that I'm meh on, is the characters themselves. And it's mainly because, I mean, there's nothing there. Literally, there's nothing there. Outside of Roku, we don't get to see anything from anyone else's perspective. Like I said, Roku is out on a mission to hunt down the evil spirit that killed his caretaker Iruka, who was an exorcist herself. And she had other, like, exorcist companions as well. And one of them, I guess, sorta helps out Roku on like a mission. But he doesn't really, like, let's be honest. Roku is like one of those overpowered MCs that they pretend has a supporting cast, but he doesn't. He can annihilate anything in his path. So, you know, that it doesn't add to, like, the character depth when Roku is the only one really doing anything. Also, Iruka had a little sister, Uruka, who is sort of like Roku's sidekick. And I'm not gonna lie, she's been kind of annoying. She has this whole, like, inferiority complex thing going on, that she wasn't as good as her sister at being an exorcist, and that she, you know, can't stand beside Roku. And so she has this whole, like, self-loathing, sort of like self-pity kind of, like, attitude that she tries to like make light of by being goofy. That's where, like, the goofy art style comes in, but it just doesn't work, and she's kind of annoying, to be honest. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, she just wears a bunny outfit all the time for no reason at all. Like, I was like, what? I actually, no, there is a reason. I lied. It was explained later why she does, but it's like the most non-reason of all time, in the most, like, pathetic way to make an excuse to put a bunny outfit into a manga. But I was like, whatever, I just blocked that out of my mind. But another thing I was kind of meh on in this manga was the pacing. There is a lot of jump cuts, of, like, mini time skips. It's not actual time skips, but it like jumps all around and all over the place. And it's hard to keep track of a story when we don't know much about A, the world, B, the monsters, C, the characters. I said this about another manga called, I think it's Mamushi Musume? I might be wrong. It's something like Insect Girl. But, yeah, that manga, it felt like they stripped out 20 chapters of, like, actual world building and, like, genuine character dialogue that actually serves a purpose. And they just went straight to war, and they just went straight to fighting 24/7. And some people might like that, but when you jump constantly all over the place, a little bit back in time, and then a little bit forward in time, and it's just constant jumping between fights, it's very jarring, and it makes you feel like, okay, like, what's happening? Why am I reading random fight scenes? I could go on Twitter and just look at random fight panels if that's what I wanted to do. This doesn't feel like there's really a, I guess, cohesive story, because it hasn't really been that so far, outside of understanding Roku's intentions to hunt down this evil spirit. But honestly, I could deal with the pacing issues and the constant jump cuts and flashbacks and all that if it just had a really interesting plot, which it doesn't. Like I said, it has a very by the book, very generic sort of plot of this, like, revenge story, this really emo, very depressing, moody MC who just, the dude's eyes are constantly, like, half open. He's constantly looking down. Like, he has to be one of the most depressed people of all time. Like, pass the dude a blunt, give him some hard liquor or something. He is the most depressing character I've ever had to read. But outside of that, the plot doesn't go anywhere besides, I guess, talking to Roku about what his plans are to, you know, hunt down this evil spirit. And everyone else just been like, oh, revenge is not the way. You know, that whole, you know, song and dance. It doesn't do anything special or unique. And it doesn't even do, like just, like, the same tropes in a sort of charming, or at least in a different way, that keeps you engaged. So again, the main reason I still have continued to read this manga is because the art looks pretty good at times. But cool looking art can only carry you so far, where you don't have things like complex and compelling characters, very deep world building, or an interesting and unique plot, or maybe just a sort of twist on an unoriginal plot even. Like, it doesn't have to always be the most, you know, original, really cool idea for a plot. Sometimes it just matters about the execution of the plot. And this manga doesn't have any of those things. But with all that being said, you might be wondering why I made this video then. And it's because I think that this manga actually has a lot of potential. Like, I feel like the potential of this manga is just being squandered by the writer or the editor, whoever is the reason why the story is going in the way it is. I feel like it has a lot more to offer than it's showing. If, again, it just adds those things. I feel like the character depth is really not too hard. Like, I feel like the characters in this manga have potential to be people that are very interesting and you can get invested into. I feel like this very run-of-the-mill plain plot with basically no world building is something that can be remedied very easily if they just take the time, slow down, stop putting fight scenes that just look super confusing in our face every 5 seconds because, you know, we're like 10-year-olds who constantly need action. Slow down, you know, sort of explain the world, do a little bit of world building, do a little bit of character development and character building, maybe other backstories, and overall just stop following this shonen trope of trying to sprint to the finish line when you don't have the legs to do so. Like, this manga has not laid the foundation to be moving and progressing as forward as fast as it has, and to be having as many fight scenes as it does. You know, take it slow down, and I feel like this manga would increase tenfold. I feel like there's a lot here that can be done well if they just slow down and take their time with it. But yeah, that's basically all I have to say on the Nito Exorcists for right now. Hopefully I didn't spoil too much. I know in my last manga video I said, oh, I'm gonna not try to spoil a lot. I spoiled everything, and I talked about everything because I really love that manga. I don't have the luxury to do that with this manga because I think it only has 22 chapters out right now. I read chapters 1 to 13 in English, and then 14 to 18 I don't think they have them in English, so I just sort of scrolled through it in Japanese, and then like 19 to 22 in English again. But I still feel like there's a lot left to be desired from this manga, and a lot of potential just being squandered, to be honest. There goes that word again, potential. I don't know, maybe this is cap, maybe this is just how I'm feeling. I feel like there's a lot more here again than what the story is showing, and so yeah, hopefully they can figure it out and actually make this a really good story with good characters and good world building so that it's actually become something that's worthwhile. But I guess with all weekly shonen manga, I guess we'll just have to wait to find out. But let me know if you read the Nito Exorcists. To be honest, you probably haven't, even if you're watching this video. Go read chapters 1 to 3 on Manga Plus, and then come back and tell me what you think of it. If I'm right about it, if there's potential being squandered, or if you think it's just a, you know, regular generic sort of shonen story that doesn't have really too much to offer. But yeah, that's it for me. I'll see you next time.